The recording is actually starting. So go ahead, Chris. Introduce yourself.
Excellent, thank you. I will just get my slide deck up because that is my first slide, is actually introducing myself. Okay. So my name is Chris Stankaitis. I'm the National Program Support Commissioner for Events. I am a scouter in Southern Ontario in CEC. I'm working at the venture age group right now, but I started off as a Cub Pack scouter, moved up with my son. I'm a former group commissioner. I took a very small group in Southern Ontario that had one beaver section and a cub section with about 30 youth and a dozen scouters, and grew it over 4 years to 120 youth and 50 scouters. And my group was called out a few times by Andrew on the membership growth. That was pre-COVID. I went through a succession planning exercise to hand my group over to a new group commissioner because I wanted to take on some new adventures at the area level, and then they got rid of areas. And I was looking at potentially doing something at the council level when I was asked to throw my hat into the ring for a position at the national level. Many years ago, during the spring NST, during one of the spring NST conferences that Scouts Canada ran, I was very fortunate to be invited by Andrew to be on a group commissioner panel. That kind of was the start of all of the changes that we've had over the last bunch of years, moving to the model of the group support center and councils being focused on group commissioners and the group commissioner training program and the functional teams. And so it was really interesting to see how that was kind of the germ of that tree and flower that's been growing. Professionally, I am a people manager and a people leader in a high-paced, high-change, high-tech consultancy. And I excel at strategic leadership and overcoming complex challenges. And that's where my strengths lie. So once I do that, I enjoy moving on to the next challenge. So that's why I handed my group over to a new commissioner, because at 120 youth and 50 scouters, it was pretty much mostly done. There was going to be a little bit of organic growth there, but we weren't really looking at pushing high growth. So I wanted to move on to my next challenge, and that has now become the event portfolio. So the event standard. So the question everyone wants to know is why? Why are we doing this? And it's three main reasons. And I'm actually going to go backwards because I think actually the order I have this in here is not right. Because the number one reason why we want to make sure we have a standard is because we want to ensure that events are providing amazing programming to the youth. We want our programming to be age-aligned and aligned with the Scouts Canada missions, principles, spices, etc. Because it's really the excellent programming that we put on that are our events for our youth is really why we should be running events, is to be doing amazing programming for our youth. We also want to work with events to help them refresh programming year over year. That's not to say everything needs to be thrown out. Kids are always going to want to do certain activities, but we want to try and make sure that we're thinking about return value for the youth in why they should come back to those events year after year after year. We want to make sure that we're always driving value to the youth membership and and facilitating new and exciting adventures for them. The other two main reasons are that nationally, the Board of Governors and have identified that our events have too many incidents. You know, that's again spread out across the entire country. And we want to make sure we're reducing the incidents and basically leveling up our risk management. So part of the way the event standard works is there's going to be some extra sets of eyes available to help review things like risk management plans, ask questions of things that may need to be considered, help share incredible examples of risk management plans that may have been done at another camp in a different part of the country that we can use as learning tools so we can all get better at it. And then finally, too many events were not running financially positive and not going into their event with a plan to run financially positive. We always know that, plan, do, and review. There can always be a bit of a drift from the plan, but we want to make sure that our events are planning, at least from the outset, to go in and be financially positive. And basically, by focusing on those three main areas, we're going to try and increase the quality and consistency of the events across the entire country for all of our membership. And we want to we want to make sure that the kids have amazing events regardless of where they're located, and it's not just geographically bound because they happen to be living near a group of organizers that put on a great event. We want 5-star events across the country that are being run with amazing programming, that are being risk managed properly, and that are being financially managed properly. Some of the financial management is also Scouts Canada operations compliance, because Scouts Canada as a corporate entity is audited, and they need to make sure that they have some of the proof that they may need in the event that an auditor wants to dive into the finances of a certain event or something like that. So the standard continued. It's important to understand that this standard was built out to handle everything from a Cub Car rally all the way up to PJ and everything in between. So the standard is as much a framework as it is a standard. And what we know about frameworks from business and other types of frameworks is you have to know how to apply the framework to the appropriate sized event and the appropriate risk level of the event. So we're not going to try and apply the entire framework soup to nuts to a Cub Car rally. That's not going to make sense. Nor are we going to have an event like PJ not have to go through the entire rigor of the framework, right? So based on multiple factors, this is all online. I can toss some links in Teams. Events fill out their Part 1 and Part 2 application, and they go through basically a scoring system, and it's multiple factors. Things like, have they held the event there before? Is the event team new or like seasoned veterans? What's the attendance? What's the historical number of incidents at this event? And it comes up with a risk score at the end of that, of either being a low, medium, or high risk event. The resulting outcome will inform what level of the framework and the standard needs to apply to the event. The gist of it, of course, being the lower the risk of your event, the less of the framework and oversight and hoops and rigor and all that type of stuff that you need to jump through. And to be clear, as it is right now, we only have maybe four events that fall into that high risk category. So 80 to 90% of the events that we run are going to be low risk or medium risk. And most of the medium risk events are going to fall on the lower end of the medium risk scale. So we're going to really be shooting for some minimum viable process here and not maximum viable process for most every event. So the new event standard also comes with an event support team that is currently in the process of being built. So it's important to know what we're going to be doing and not going to be doing as well. So the event support team is going to be supporting event organizers, working them through the standard. Basically, the event support team is going to be the de facto experts on the process, on how to help events move through the process, answer questions, support what needs to happen in order to get through the various checkpoints and approvals and all that type of stuff. So what we don't want to do, and it's a little bit this way right now because we're just getting going, we don't want to have people all on their own unsupported. We want to make sure that everybody who's running an event has to go through the framework, which is everybody, has support. But based on a bunch of factors provided, the event team is not going to be necessarily micromanaging an event and looking over everybody's shoulder. A lot of the events are going to be delegated right back to the people who've been running those events for years. It's going to be clear what they need to make sure they are able to provide at the end of their event. They're going to have someone they can reach out to if they have questions, and then we're going to get invited to the wrap up where we can just ask how everything went and then collect the information that needs to be collected for Scouts Canada. But other events that do fall, say, maybe potentially on the higher end of the medium risk scale, may have someone assigned to them, may have an event support scouter assigned to that event throughout the life cycle. And that decision comes down to various factors within the application that will inform the event team and the CK3 to what level of support the event might require. And of course, we're also going to take into consideration what level of support the event team themselves are asking for. They may need or want a little bit of extra help. So we'll do the best to work together collaboratively to accommodate. The other thing the event team will be doing is breaking down silos. Like I said earlier, we're going to have event support scouters across the entire country, and we're going to use that knowledge to help events that might be struggling get connected to the experts, regardless of where those people are located. So if an event needs some help with a really good risk management plan for climbing or rappelling, and they don't have access to local experts, we will know as the event team who we can tap and say, hey, could you do us a favor, Scouter John, and could you join a meeting with this event team and help them with their risk management around rappelling and climbing. So that's going to be a really nice value add to people who are organizing the events, where we can help connect them with experts that they may not have access to close by. The other thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be becoming the custodians of the event artifacts. So at the end of your event, there's a bunch of things that need to get sent in, just like how, as a group commissioner, when you're approving AAFs, they're supposed to get mailed off to an email address for at Scouts Canada. The same type of thing here for the event. We're going to collect a bunch of artifacts. We're going to put it into a SharePoint in our event support SharePoint site. And that's for different parts of the organization, like we said, like finance, who need to make sure that they'll have access to that in the event of an audit. But also it's to provide some event kind of business continuity. So we know that some of our events organization teams, some scouters may burn out, they may leave the program, heaven forbid they may go home, and a lot of that event knowledge is in their head, in their email box. We don't necessarily have access to it. We may be in that position now, hopefully not the gone home part, but where, it's been a few years since we've run events, and some of those scouters who ran those events may not be with us anymore for whatever reason. And a new group has more than enough will to do the event. We'd love to be able to hand them back the previous year's budgets and risk management plans and traffic management and gray water disposal and all of that type of stuff, so they can use that as an accelerator. Or, if we're in a different part of the country and someone's doing an event for the first time, we've never run a Cub Car rally before. Can you help us with the stuff we need for a Cub Car rally from an event paperwork point of view? As well as it does allow us to have access to those really awesome examples of event plans. And we can use those to share and say, hey, this is a really great example of a traffic management plan, or this is what a risk register is supposed to look like when it's populated, and or here's an idea of a budget for an event around the same size, and look at the things that they're considering. Is that something you may need to consider for your event? So it really allows us to help events out by having this repository of paperwork. What we're not going to be doing, though, is we're not running the event. So we don't run the event. We support those who are running the event. So we're not coming in. We're not like parachuting in and saying, haha, we're the event team. We're going to take over running this event. That's not what we're here for. We're here to support the people running the event through the process so that the events are safer, financially positive, providing excellent program for the youth. We're also not going to be, it's not on my slides, but I'm also going to say we're also not going to be doing all the paperwork for you. We're supporting you through the paperwork. We'll answer questions. But at the end of the day, you guys as an event team have to work through your own emergency response plans and stuff like that as well. Because in order to be able to execute those properly, I feel strongly, and so does National, that the people who are actually running those activities and events need to be a stakeholder in the creation of those risk management plans. So if it ever becomes time to execute something, they are not like literally cracking a binder open for the first time and have it be something someone wrote who wasn't actually intending to participate in that event or that activity. The other thing we're not going to be doing is supporting every event directly. Like I said, events will always know how to get help, but many of those low risk and even some of the lower risk, medium risk events, God, I hate saying that, won't need direct support from an event support team through the life cycle of their event. So that'll be more like, okay, you've gotten through your part 1 and part 2 of your application. Your event is now approved to run. You guys have a historical track record of running a really well risk managed event. You guys have never really had budget problems. You're a seasoned event team that know what they're doing. Reach out if you need any help, and then invite us to the post-event wrap-up, right? So that's going to be a lot of the support that for the lower risk events. Now, having said that, if the council team or the event team requests additional assistance, then we'll evaluate that as a group and do our best to provide it. One thing that's really important is that the event team is being built. So we're also not going to reach every event across Canada this year. We're going to be relying a lot with the councils to make sure that the minimum viable event application and approval is happening, because we do need to start developing that discipline, so that events are doing that part 1 and part 2 of the application. But we won't necessarily be hitting every event. We need to be tactical. It's a team of volunteers, so if anyone, and most of the people on this call, I believe, have been involved in volunteer recruitment, know that that's a never-ending and ongoing process, and I can't just make 50 event support scouters materialize overnight. So our capacity is going to be limited while we're building up the team, and we're not going to be necessarily supporting every single event. We're going to be a little tactical at the beginning as we build up. Now, caveat to that, if I'm wrong and I have 50 event support scouters in a month and a half, then we'll obviously have a lot more capacity to support a lot more events more directly, and it will be less of a tactical thing at that point. And so unless there's a concern raised by, say, council or someone, we're not actually going to be going to any events that are running in the next couple of months and asking them to work through the standard retroactively. That's okay. We'll get the next event the event team runs, even if that's the same event next year. I'm not going to take any event that's coming up in, I don't know if you have anything coming up in March or April, and make you guys stop what you're doing mid-event plan and fill out paperwork because it's on a different piece of paper. So I'm not going to be going and doing that. Unless someone says, Chris, we have some concerns, we do want to work with an event team to work through the standard, then we're going to be targeting more of the events that are going to be coming up in the late spring, the summer, even in the fall, right? Like if things are being planned for, September or October, or, those type of events, we're definitely going to start making sure are on the radar. So events. So does my event need to follow the standard? And the answer is yes. All events must follow the standard. All events need to be properly risk managed and financially managed, not to run at a loss. However, depending on who your event is targeted to is going to really determine who is doing that approval process and who's providing that oversight to make sure that the parts of the standard that need to be followed are being followed. So I'm going to summarize the next couple of slides because they've basically been written up as policies, but I'll hit the highlights and people can read, so I'm not just reading slides verbatim. If the event is providing program experience to the sections, i.e., if it's an event for the youth, then everyone needs to follow the standard as it is written today. The council or a group support skeleton? Wow. A group support scouter provides approval if the CK3 decide to delegate, or it's, at the beginning, it's probably going to be a very much the CK3 and the event support team working together just to make sure we all go through the process properly. If it's a high-risk event, that requires approval by the NK3 or myself if the NK3 choose to delegate to me. Now, again, remember, there's like 4 high-risk events, so chances are that's not going to be something that a lot of people run up against. It's mostly going to be working with council if it's a youth event. Now, if the event is held by a Scouts Canada functional team and it does not provide program experience to the youth, so things like scout cons, outdoor adventure skill days. I know Talon is working on some of those for some of the areas he supports. Camp fundraisers, youth spokesperson training. Those are going to be accountable to the supervising functional commissioner of that functional group or team. So I know that sounds a little confusing, but like, great example, if you're on a camp team and you want to run a camp fundraiser for Camp Bernard, that'll roll up either to Heather or Callie. They can figure that out there. Because again, they're going to provide the oversight to your camp fundraiser because it's not providing program experience to the youth. And if you lose money on your camp fundraiser, that comes out of Callie's budget or Heather's budget, or more so probably your own budget, which rolls up to Callie and Heather. If Talon is putting on some type of an event as part of his role with the program support team, then that will roll up to either our National Support Commissioner of Scouter Development or our National Support Commissioner for Outdoor Adventure Skills. And they will provide that oversight and approval of the process. And then the last one is training or any Scouter development events that are not run by the program team. So I know we have some camp committees who put on Scouter skill days and events for the Scouter development of the Scouters in the area. As per our standard, have to be reviewed and approved through program and volunteer services by either the National Program Commissioner for Scouter Development or Outdoor Adventure Skills. So all training needs to be reviewed and approved to make sure it's following the standards that have been developed with Scouts Canada over the last couple of years, and not necessarily old programming or any stuff like that. I'm staying out of that area because that's not my ballpark, but I just want to call that out specifically because it has definitely been a question we've had over the last few sessions about what happens if a group of Scouters are running a Scouter skill day or something like that. So how to get started. So I'm going to give the big caveat. This is going to be changing. So right now, the application is a PDF for low and medium council events. The problem is it requires people to figure out who to send it to. So is it a youth event, so it needs to go to the event support team and the CK3? Is it an event being run by a Scouts Canada functional group, training and development? I don't want anyone to have to look at a flowchart to figure out who to send their application to. So we're going to be automating part 1 as an online application. Part 1 of the application is your elevator pitch. It's a very short description of your event. It is intended to just give the 50,000-foot view pitch to the CK3 or the event support team, and it's designed to have a very fast feedback loop to say, yes, we are excited about this too. Please continue on to part 2. Part 2 is where the work actually starts happening. In part 2, you have to lay out your risk management strategy. You don't have to have all of the risk management plans written up, but you have to lay out your risk management strategy. You have to lay out your financial plan to run the event positive, and you have to talk about your programming, especially calling out any level 2 or level 3 activities. So those can be, again, properly risk managed earlier on in the process than some events have been doing in the past. Now, one of the really I'll call it a dumb thing. I'll call the spade a spade. I won't pull punches. Is right now in the application, all of the budget stuff is going into a PDF. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to put a budget in a PDF. And then because it's in a PDF, you have to do a whole bunch of math to calculate a whole bunch of things. Now, the whole bunch of things you're calculating are really important and really useful information around your margin and your anticipated revenue and your break-even point. So it's all really important stuff. But this is like 2022. A spreadsheet can do all of that math. So we're going to actually get the budget out of the PDF into a proper spreadsheet, and then the people will just plug in their numbers, and there'll be a tab that does all the calculations. Which are, like I said, very important calculations for doing things like setting go, no go dates and understanding what registration you need to break even and all that good stuff. But it's not stuff that I want anyone to break out a calculator over, because we can do better. So yeah, we're going to be automating it, but that doesn't mean that we wait for the automation. The PDF is here. It works. If we're starting to plan an event, we should be going through the PDF application process. I'm hoping that I will. So there's a newsletter that comes out every couple of weeks to the CK3, and with information to Cascade. And as soon as I'm able to get the application up there, I'm going to make sure that that's cascaded down in the next newsletter that goes out to the CK3, and they'll be able to let you know. My goal is that instead of having like a plethora of pages, they're all still going to be there, because all of that information is important and supports your event planning. But I want to just have a nice big click here to start your event application button and make it nice and clear for everybody. That's going to help the event support team, because it's not going to be anything fancy. It's going to be a form that sits on top of Smartsheets. It's going to populate a Smartsheet, and that's where we're going to be doing tracking, like was the event reviewed by the CK3? Was it approved? When was it approved? Who approved it? You know, all of the logistical stuff that we need to do on the back end. So some final takeaways. So the event standard is going to require some organizers to change how they're doing things, but it's generally going to be for the better. It requires consideration for the proper risk and financial management, as well as engaging programming earlier in the process than some events have done in the past. Now, the flip side of that is many events are going to breeze through it, because they have been doing this on their own without being asked to. They are a mature event team. They've had the ability to mature things like their ERPs and their AAFs and all that type of stuff. And they're going to breeze through it. They're going to take a look at it. I had feedback last night. I was on the property support scouter team meeting, and there were some property support scouters for a camp that's local to me, and they run events. And they said, we looked at the application and we're a little overwhelmed, but then when we took a deep breath and looked at it, we went, oh, this isn't really that bad. It's all the stuff we already do, so we're going to be fine. We're just going to be able to give them this as attachments. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to work with that group to help them level up to the next level of maturity for their, risk management and financial management and all that type of stuff. But the point being is that many events are going to get through the standard without too much of a challenge. And some of them will, and that's, the event support team will be there to help. The council will be there to help. I'll be there to help. And the good news is once we get through that for that event, then we tend to run our events at the same locations. We tend to run things annually, and they'll be able to reuse all of those artifacts in the next year when preparing for their event. They'll obviously have to update everything, but it'll be a really great accelerator to being able to go through that process. And again, the takeaway here is this is being done to achieve consistently well-run, safe events that drive value to the membership across the entire country, so that all the youth can benefit from having amazing events. Takeaway number 2, the events team is still being built, so we're going to need to be tactical while we build up. We are looking for members, so if you have people in mind who you think would make great event support scouters, encourage them to apply. We're looking again for people who are really good process-oriented people. Maybe they have a product management or project management or process management background. Maybe they've done have a logistical background, as well as having experience running these bigger events, because that is, that is just as important as, what someone does for a living or has a background with. So Talon and I actually fixed the Apply Now button. I'll give Talon all the credit for that because he cracked the whip at Scouts Canada. For some reason, the Apply Now button was gone from the Program and Volunteer Support Scouter volunteer page. We got that back up and running. So please encourage people to take a look at the event support team and apply for it, because I'd really love to have regional representation as well, because there's very much regional domain knowledge and council-specific idiosyncrasies that someone like me in Ontario has no clue about, and I don't want to try and pretend that I do. I'd love to have an event support scouter or two from every council. So if you know people who you think would be great, encourage them to apply, please. And then at the end of the day, you've already seen me talk about this. It's a living and breathing and evolving process. And 100% of the bugs have not been worked out yet, because we're taking what a couple of people wrote down on a piece of paper a few years ago, and we're now actually starting to run events through it. Now, there was a good exercise that took 100 events and ran it through the risk classification part of the approval process. And that's done a really good job quantifying that it's causing events to be classified where we feel they should be classified. But some of the nuts and bolts of what actually happens when we get past the part 1 and part 2 of this process have not been fully worked out. And I'm not going to be held to what someone wrote on a piece of paper a couple of years ago before we actually tried doing this. So I'm going to endeavor to make changes that improve the process and make everybody's life easier, cut down on the number of pages and the number of boxes, do things like automate the math so that it doesn't feel like you're doing your taxes. But I'm not also going to just not change things because people don't like change, because I understand that, but there's also a very high cost of doing nothing. So expect updates and changes as we iterate through it. But again, I'm always working to try and make it better, more efficient, and more streamlined for the majority of the events. I want to cut things out that don't need to be there. I don't want to add anything. Though I have to just say that, something could come up that is unavoidable and causes me to have add another box or something like that. But the goal is going to be to cut things down.
Chris, it's Jennifer here. You have about 5 more minutes, and so I just wanted to put it out there that there's a lot of questions in the chat, and Talon's, thank you so much for answering the majority of those. But are you able to take some questions from some scouters here?
I am, absolutely.
If you have a question, you can put up your hand.
Okay, I see there's a hand raised by Tammy.
Yes, hi. So I threw my question in the chat, but I'll ask it. So I'm assuming that an event would be qualified as, for example, the Klondike Derby. It happens in our area. Multi-groups attend that day event, and there are organizers for that. We as a group register our section, and our youth attend. And in the past, we would, that section would put in an MAAF and their ERP, and we'd have all of our safety standards in place to attend Klondike Derby. But with this new standard, does that mean the organizers, the big organizers, the organizers of Klondike Derby would be following this standard, or does this mean that each individual group will now need to do this as well?
No, so that would be only for the organizers of the event who have to follow the event standard. Now, Scouts Canada still requires you to do an AAF for your own group that you're bringing. But the hope would be that, and I know this has happened at some of the events that I brought my Scout troop to and my Cub Pack to, is the event can provide you with certain portions of that to help do your AAF. So they'll have to do that themselves, so they can provide things to you like, here's the nearest hospital, here's the, all of the stuff that we're putting into our AAS, right?
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. I think Paul had his hand up.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Great presentation, Chris. I love the direction that we're going in this particular space, because I've done a couple events in the past and they're quite troublesome because you're on your own. So the question I have is around the risk levels that you have. Can we put some time frames around the approval process for that? Like a low risk would take a month to turn around, like how to build that into your plan, or something to that. If you've got a high risk event with 80 kids, it's going to take about 4 months to do the proper assessment. And the other thing that I'd ask for in here too is potentially templates for a checklist of the type of things that you'll need for the event. Like, have you got your insurance? Does the venue actually suit what you're actually doing? That sort of stuff. Because in these events in the past, like I had to figure it all out on my own because there was no previous information. So just thinking forward of, if you could have a little checklist that says, you've got to get your certificate of insurance, you've got to get all these little pieces for the event, how many kids are involved, it's going to take this much more effort. It just might be helpful in the future.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely kind of a maturity level thing that we can aim for. I was talking with the property support scouters last night, and I was saying, what I would love to see them potentially do is develop some of the risk management plans for their camps, because they're the experts, right? Like, they know their camps better than any scouter does, especially if it's a new scouter who hasn't attended events there. So it would be really nice that the camps might be able to provide assistance when it comes to like a traffic management plan and stuff like that. Now, I didn't obviously commit the camps to anything last night. It was just something I was discussing with the property support scouters about how, as we get the basics of this process under our belt, we can start looking at maturing it to add the kind of nice things to it, right? To your earlier point, right now it's clear in the application that it can be up to 3 weeks to have your Part 1 reviewed and approved. And then the idea is that's a lot of extra time. It should hopefully happen faster. But then, the Part 2, you can work on in parallel if if you run your event year over year, chances are your Part 1 is just a formality. It's more like, hey, council, we want to run the Klondike Derby again. And council's like, excellent, give us a Part 2, right? Like, there you go, right? The Part 2 is where, we get into the actual nitty gritty around the budget and the anticipated attendance and the break even. And that one, again, will be another, it says right there, your council leadership team could take up to 4 weeks to approve that. So, and your event is not approved to run until your Part 2 has been approved, and you're still in the planning stage in Part 3. So Part 2 talks about your risk management plan, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have all that written and developed and good to go, right? It just says this is our strategy, right? This is the plan. So it is going to involve some reverse engineering. So, you're going to be like, okay, we're going to need a month or two to actually plan out the event before we get to things like mobbing and demobbing the actual, running of the event. So, you're going to want to start the process probably a good 4 to 6 months before the event. And that's part of the main reason why I'm not making any events that are running in the next month or so try and shoehorn them retroactively through paperwork or anything like that.
Thank you.
Now, of course, that's going with all of the the longest turnaround, right? That's like, oh, the council's going to sit on something for a month for part one and then sit on something for a month for part two, right? It could actually happen quite quicker. But we do want to build that into the plan, right?
My future hope would be that we'd be able to go to a repository where I could go and look at, like, say, First Vernon's. They've run a Cub Car rally. Here was their budget structure. They had about 80 kids. They had to order badges. And take their template. So I could replicate the same thing in the Victoria area, because we've never done an event like that, just say, so we could do it again and again across Canada, because right at the moment when we're doing some of these events, you're building them from scratch because we've never done it before.
Exactly, and that's a large part of the event support team. So you could send a message to event support and say, hey, I'm running this type of an event for the first time. Do you have any similar events that I can get some of that information from to help really accelerate me and to help fill in those gaps? Because, to speak fair, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes, you have to learn through doing. And if we can take an event that's been running 10 years and is very mature and give a newer event the benefit of that maturity and the benefit of that wisdom, then that's how we're going to be providing higher quality events to our youth, right?
Perfect. That's the answer I'm looking for, Chris. Awesome.
Now, of course, this all is going to be a moving forward process as we collect all of that information.
Okay. And if there are any other questions out there for Chris, we do have some other stuff to go through tonight. Chris, did you want to give your contact info out into the chat? And
yeah, absolutely. I was going to say I'm going to hang around for a few minutes, so I'll look in chat, and if there's anything in there that Talon hasn't answered, I'll see if I can chime in on it. And yeah, I'll put my contact information in there as well.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Okay, thank you so much, Chris. And Chris is in Ontario, so he is, it's the middle of the evening for him. So thank you so much for taking your time out as a paid employee to come on out and educate us on the events playbook. Much appreciated.
Thank you. I am a volunteer. So that's okay. I'm not a paid employee. That's okay. But that's okay. And, this is something I'm really excited about. I'm happy to do another one of these or, do something with a smaller audience with, a specific targeted group. If any follow-ups required, you can just get a hold of me either directly or you can talk to Talon and he knows how to get a hold of me.
Much appreciated. Okay.
Thank
you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
So look for Chris's details in the chat, and if you still have any question, we'll answer Jamie's question. Chris, if you can take a look at Jamie's question in the chat and respond to that, that would be great. And I would like to introduce you to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Krysta Reid, who is our group support scouter. She's located in Dawson Creek, beautiful sunny Dawson Creek. And so I'd like to introduce Crystal, and she'll be going through our new Scouter Welcome Wagon.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal. I, along with Richard Pressland, are starting a new Welcome Wagon program for new Scouters. So we're going to support new Scouters on their onboarding process and try to get them active within the 90 days that Scouts Canada would like Scouters to be active in. So I'm going to share my screen. So we are calling ourselves the Cascadia Welcome Wagon, and name change. It's evolving as we go. And so our purpose is to help guide new Scouters through the onboarding process within 90 days. We want to give support to group commissioners by completing reference checks and helping with interviews. Scouts Canada is trying to push for interviews being the first, not the last requirement for the onboarding process, so that we can answer those questions for the Scouters, as well as just make sure they are a good fit for the groups and for Scouts Canada. Give guidance through the David Hustis Learning Center. That can be a challenging program to navigate when you first become a Scouter, so we want to help Scouters with that. And then just answer any questions Scouters or group commissioners may have. Is there a question? Or are we good? Okay. So how is it going to work? We are in the beginning process, could change, but we are going to send an email with a Welcome Wagon message to the new Scouter, the group commissioner, and we're also going to copy in the group support Scouter, or the RM, welcoming them to Cascadia Council. We will also include the paperwork for them to apply for their police record check, as well as a video message from our CK3, which I believe we are showing after. Is that correct, Jen?
Only if there's time, sure.
Okay.
I can queue it up, absolutely.
Okay, it's great. And then we will also work with the group commissioner to set up the interview with the new Scouter. And then we will also be available to help with the interview if needed, if the group doesn't have a second Scouter, or if the group commissioner just needs some help. And then Richard or I will follow up with the new Scouter every week or every 2 weeks to review the progress and answer any questions. So the whole idea is to welcome them, give them a big bear hug, and help them through this process. So working. Did I just hear myself? Okay. So if you have any information, or if you want any more information, or if you want to contact us, my email address, my phone number, as well as Richard's email is here. I'll also plunk it into the chat for everyone. And then we will also be sending out an email to all the group commissioners in the next week or so, just introducing ourselves and going over this information. So that was my quick little spiel. Are there any questions about this, or anything that you guys can provide some information to us, or just some feedback?
So, Crystal, will you just be communicating through email with the group commissioners then, so they can just keep track of their emails as they come through?
Emails for sure, and then if we're not getting any response through emails with the new Scouter or the group commissioners, we will be picking up the phone and calling the group commissioner and the new Scouter.
Okay. So for groups that already have registrars, because there's our groups that still have registrars out there in the system, this is typically the registrar's role. Is this taking away work from the registrar?
I think it's more going to be helping the registrars. Basically, one of the challenges was we're not consistent across the council. So we want to provide that level of consistency and basically make sure all our new Scouters are taken care of as well as possible.
It looks like we have a question from Dave.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have some timeline. So sometimes I get parents that are trying to put themselves in as parent helpers or parents overnight, and they say, oh, there's not that role there, so they sign up as a scouter, but they don't really mean it. So it takes us a few days to go, oh, they're in there and we need to get them out. So I just, I don't want to waste your guys' time. So I don't know if you have like a 5-day delay or a 5-second delay on your trigger.
We're going to pull the reports every week to every 2 weeks. So
okay, perfect.
If something like that happens, just shoot me an email, and if I can't fix it, I'll have registration fix it for you.
Yeah, there was just a recent occurrence in our group, and I thought, oh, geez, what's going to happen? Is this going to create extra work for you? We don't want that.
No, it's like a 2-second thing to fix.
Yeah, all good.
Now that they've started the process, you can very well just say they might as well keep going.
I tried.
Become a scout.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for Crystal? And can we meet your counterpart, David?
Richard.
Oh, Richard Preslin, thank you. There you are.
Yes, I was the one speaking up. Sorry, I should have turned my video on.
That's okay. So this is the team. They'll be working together, Crystal and Richard here. So thank you so much, guys, for heading this up. And Scouters, Group Commissioners, if you have any questions or any feedback, both Richard and Crystal are amazing team members to work with. So they'll be open to suggestions as well. So if there's feedback, please offer it. That's what we're here for.
Now, I guess I also want to say, Jen, like you brought up group registrars. So group commissioners, if you want your registrars as well copied in on all the emails, just let us know. And we'll keep track of that.
And we are looking for a third committee member. So if you know of anyone, please send them our way. We're really fun to work with.
And that will segue out into the video. So let me just pull up the video here. It is on a YouTube link. So if you needed to stand up and shake for a little bit, we don't have that much long to go, but I'll just configure the screen over to the YouTube so that I'll give you just 1 minute to stand up here and for me to share the screen. I always forget to share the sound on Teams. Congratulations on signing up to be a volunteer with Scouts Canada. Some of you may already be familiar with Scouting, and others are joining us for the very first time. Either way, we want to let you know that Scouting isn't only for the youth. Scouters, too, reap endless benefits, like creating lasting memories with your child, making lifelong friendships, belonging to a community, gaining skills like wilderness first aid, and so much more. On behalf of Scouts Canada, Cascadia Council, we welcome you. Now you may be wondering, what is Cascadia Council? Scouts Canada's programs are delivered through different regions, and Cascadia is the region of BC and Yukon, minus Vancouver and Fraser Valley. Since you're located somewhere in BC or the Yukon, you are part of Cascadia Council. Cascadia Council is operated by the Council Key 3, also known as the CK3. You'll quickly learn that we love our acronyms. The CK3 is comprised of 2 volunteers currently, the Council Commissioner, which is myself, Jennifer Hanna, and Council Youth Commissioner, we're still recruiting for that role, and our staff member, Alex Longo, who's our Council Relationship Manager. So what does that all mean?
Well, for the leadership team overseeing the operation of scouting in Cascadia, supporting all of our scout groups and volunteers, just like you. Each scout has an assigned relationship manager who works with our group commissioners and committees to ensure groups have all the tools and support they need.
Now we're going to cover what you can expect over the next 90 days during your scouting onboarding. We have a designated new Scouter support volunteer who will be working with you to ensure you meet all the safety and compliance requirements to become an active Scouter. Shortly after watching this video, Cascadia's new Scouter support team will connect with you and your group commissioner to set up an interview. This is a great way for you to learn about your local Scout group and meet the leader of your team. After that, you can expect a mix of online and in-person training, as well as requests to submit references and a police record check.
It sounds like a lot, and it is. Because we're all about youth and volunteer safety, but we will help you every step of the way. We look forward to seeing you on the Canadian path. If you don't know what that means, it's in your training. On behalf of Cascadia Council and the Council Key 3, welcome to Scouting.
So that was one of our first takes. It had to be edited a lot because we kept laughing and making jokes. So
you did a good job, guys. Well done.
Yeah, yeah. And so we'll be using a lot of video as a as a means of connecting out with the Scouters and putting it on our YouTube channel, Facebook pages as well. So I just wanted to give that update to you that we will be doing like little information sessions as well for Scouters and putting it out there onto YouTube. And we'll update the group commissioners pages as well, just to let you know that that anything is new and updated on there. So now that we've made it through our first video and had to edit a lot out of it, but that's okay. Making each other laugh. And so thank you so much for your kind words about the video as well. And do you guys have any questions about the new Scouter Welcome Wagon? Okay, I don't see any hands up and no one's screaming, so perfect. That's wonderful. That's good news. So just to give you a couple more updates, we're actually almost done this call now. We do have a couple of items here. We have a couple of Scouter development days coming up. The next one is March 6th, which is at Camp Colette, and it is Scouter Development Day. And working on first to third year Scouters. So whether you are new into a section or new into a group. So these are for pending volunteers as well, and for people that are interested in becoming a Scouter as well. So they do have an agenda set up. It's a full day agenda for Scouter development, March 6th at Camp Colette. And I will be updating the group commissioner page and also the Facebook Cascadia Council page with that update. On April 23rd, there's one back into the interior of BC, Kamloops, Kelowna, Barriere region. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. My apologies if I'm not. So that next one is April 23rd. And that's another Scouter development, and that will be their second one. We'll then be planning a second Scouter development day here in Victoria as well coming up. So that's our next one that we're planning. So that date is TBD. Okay. And we also have initiated what's called mug-ups. So a lot of you remember that we used to work in like these little pocket areas and what we called our areas. We are starting off with the north, and I mean North Dawson Creek area. Crystal is heading that up as a pilot. We're sending out to group commissioners a little card on on Save the Date. So the Save the Date is the expected mug up for the areas. So we're going to be starting off with the group committees, and then we'll be opening it up to different scouters. We just want to see how this develops and bringing people closer. Much like Chris said in his presentation, everyone has been so siloed, and we're coming through a pandemic where everyone has just been kind of just hovered in behind their screens. So we're just kind of hoping to bring some type of connection out for these mug ups, and just dealing with different groups in different areas in different regions of BC and Yukon, of getting everyone together and just talking about challenges, talking about what your weaknesses are, what you can do for assistance, and how you guys can help hybrid with each other too. So it's just getting that open networking connection in between each other. So I'm really, really looking forward to these Scouter mug-ups happening as well, and getting the connection back into scouting. So I will open up the floor to Scouters if you guys have any questions, comments, feedback. One person I didn't introduce, I see that he came in a little bit late, Mr. Grant, lawyer. You're here as well. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks. Yeah, I'm just one of the 3 voting reps for Cascadia Council. So yeah, I was at a previous meeting for Rotary before I ended up on this call.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. So Grant, did you want to tell the Scouters what the council voting reps do? You have about 3 minutes here.
Oh, okay. I can tap dance.
Sure.
On that. Council voting reps are your representative to Scouts Canada. If you have an issue that wants to be raised in that, we can raise that issue with the Board of Governors and such on your behalf. If you have a concern of something's not going right, we can reach out, and it's another mechanism other than going through the council commissioner route or the council key 3 route to try to get an answer for something and such. So that's our main job. I guess Ron and Aurora and I have talked about this, and we feel that our role is basically we represent you. You voted us into these positions, so our main job is to represent you, the membership of Cascadia Council, in these type of things. So that's what we do. We actually have monthly meetings as well. We were supposed to have a meeting tonight, but it just went by the wayside because too many other things were happening and such. But the council voting reps for BC Yukon get together on a monthly basis, and we also talk about issues with Cascadia, with Fraser Valley, and with Pacific Coast councils, and see if we have things in common that we can support together to move forward to the board or to the national key 3 and such. So that's what our job is. If you have an issue, please reach out and contact me, and we will bring it forward and see if we can get an answer for you on that and do something about it. Thanks, Jennifer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grant. I was just going through the participant list to see if anyone had their hand up, and I saw your name. So I thought I'd peg you and put you in front of that bus. Thank you so much, Grant.
Alrighty.
For picking it up so genuinely. So are there any other questions out there that you'd like to ask? So Grace, yes, to answer your question, that would be a place where we can talk about stuff like that as well. So Grace asked, would Mug Up be a place where local scouters could get together to discuss, generate what's used to be the area events like the Wolf Hour, Beavery Spring Challenge? Absolutely, that's absolutely one of the reasons for these types of get-togethers as well. Okay. If there's no other questions out there, then I will say thank you so much to every single one of you Scouters that have come in today, volunteer or whether you are staff. I really appreciate all that you do for Scouting in Cascadia and within our communities. So thank you so much for everything that you do, because without you, there is no Scouting. So I appreciate everything that you do. You as well, Richard. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so everyone have a good night. Rest up. If there's any feedback that you'd like to give, then you can send me by an email. I'll put my contact details in the chat as well. So if there's any feedback that you have, then you are welcome to reach out to me. My email is attached to my hip. And I'm very responsive to my emails as well. So there's my email there for you. And so I'm the Cascadia Council Commissioner, Alex Longo. She is here, but she's staying behind the scenes today and doing some resting. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And so you can reach out to Alex or myself. So I'll put out Alex's email out there to you as well. We are currently recruiting for a council youth commissioner. So if you have a dynamic youth out there that that you feel would be a fantastic council representative of the youth, then just send their information my way. I'll definitely reach out to them. We are actively looking for Cascadia Council Youth Commissioner. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jen.